You can always add more to a painting, but you need to realize that the painting's already been done.
Like, at what day and moment was I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore?
Right.
I wish I could go back and kick that son of a bitch in the dick.
Whatever somebody's going through, even the little things are things that progressively get bigger. There's ways around it. There's ways to go through it. There really is.
Everything has a consequence. Everything changes with every decision that you make.
This is Me versus Me. All right, we're back on another Tuesday. Another little live edition of Me vs. Me. Today I was thinking a little bit about it, kind of trying to reflect on what I wanted to talk about. And one of the things that dawned on me was how difficult it was. We're going to use me as an example because there's no guest here today. So me, how difficult it was for me to find my identity in this world. And then I veered a little bit on those thoughts. I veered a little bit into why, and I started thinking about the impact of the things that made me who I am. Excuse me. And then a step further, I started thinking about when I started this, I think about 3.5, 4 years ago now. When I started this, I had just gotten to a point in my life where I decided I was going to start asking questions to figure out why people are who they are. That was the best thing that I could have done for myself, to just start retaining all the information that I could get my hands on, because I always had so many questions and so many unanswered things in my life, and so many reasons for me to just keep asking why, and it just always seemed to be that fucking circle. So that's where this thing started, was me asking why or how. Simply for information, because I wanted to understand people better, because I didn't understand why people were the way they were. So that's what I did. There's a lot to unpack in those three things together, and we'll kind of dig through them a little bit here. And also too, one of the requests that's been made a few different times is a couple of different listeners have expressed wanting to know a little bit more about my story and why when I reference to my story, that I always kind of reference to not wanting to unpack that right now, this and that, blah blah blah. So we can talk a little bit more about that today. And like I said, I'll use me as the example as to why searching for an identity or looking for an identity can be difficult for some people, or on the opposite side of that too, because I've met people that I've talked to pretty intimately that have told me that they've found that they couldn't single out which identity. So having too many might be a way to put it, or a different way to put it, or a different struggle, which is crazy to me to think about the contrast, because I could never figure out who I was. So a little bit about all that stuff today, and hopefully we'll get some listeners asking questions along the way, or having some input along the way, which I'm really looking forward to, because there is a lot to unpack for this episode. Damn, this damn cough. I'm sorry. Wish I had a cough button, and I don't. Just a little bit of cranberry juice. But anyway, I think for now we'll talk a little bit about me, and we'll talk a little bit about my journey on the way to doing this. We're gonna start probably like early teenage years, because that's about kind of when things started unpacking. I mean, you could really, you see, this is one of the reasons why I've always had a hard time talking about it too, is because I don't have a starting point. I don't have a correct starting point for a lot of things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I can pick back as far as I can remember different influential points in my life that were kind of picking me apart, so to speak. Which is also something else that I may not get into today, but I also want to talk about as far as our actions go as humans right now, and the things that we decide to do and say to other people. I want to talk about, at some point, the long-term impact of those things. Because there is a lot of things that I'm going to be able to pull from that have very long-term effects on who I became and why I had such a hard time finding my identity, you know? And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm not blaming anybody. We're just speaking historically. You know, we're just talking about my past, and that's okay. Everything is set in stone now, and you know, I'm making my way through the things as they are, and I'm okay with it. Everything is as it should be, and I'm okay with that. But that is something else I want to talk about, because one of the things that I had to learn the hard way once I started really digging into myself was stuff like long-term damage, long-term trauma, damage, and the things that we do and say to others that you may not realize how badly it's going to stick, you know? And again, being able to relate to that at this point, I'm really okay with, because now that I know, I take it a lot more seriously. Not just for me, but for everybody that I interact with. But anyway, so when I say looking for your identity, you know, we all go through very, very different packages of growing up. You know, nobody's story is the same as anybody else's. We all have very different versions of the same set of years that we all go through in our learning curves and in becoming adults and growing up and going through school and all that stuff. I will never sit here and tell you that I was ever perfect, but looking back on the time frames of all the important years of growing up, and the times that you need to have a hand to hold, and the times that you need to grow the most that you can with the best guidance that you can, you know, our growth years are all the way up until, I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I say all the way up until your 30s, because really I can't pinpoint any fucking point in time where I had a goddamn handle on things up until I was past my 30s. Now, maybe that's just a reflection of the things that I had to go through, and maybe some people had it a little bit easier in their early 20s. I don't know, but what I'm suggesting is, when I said I was never perfect, don't get me wrong, but I can I can vividly remember a point in time when me as a preteen or a child, when I was a lot like I was naive, you know. I was innocent. I was full of questions, and you know, I was a typical child. Just, you know, and I can reference to my son at this point. He's 10, and I can see the purity is still available in him, and it's such a beautiful thing. And with most children, right? I understand that these days it's a little bit harder because they're growing up in a different world, but with most children, you can almost always witness this, the overall purity, and then I get frustrated when I think about the steps that it took for the world to take that away from me. And I never, you know, I understand a little bit more now that I'm, you know, 38, you know, how and why that happened. I guess not necessarily why, but I can understand how that it happened. But like, it really sucks to think about, because those are the qualities, those purities, those innocences, those beautiful pieces of you, getting chucked away by a world that's consumed by a lot of bad stuff, you know, and unfortunately a lot of that bad stuff is what drives the world, whether we like it or not. But as far as my story goes, this is kind of where I want to speak in unison, because I think it's hugely important when I talk about looking for my identity and finding a new set of lungs. That'd be great. When I talk about looking for identity, I'm also going to talk about, again, the importance of the things, the choices that we make that cause long-term damage. I'm going to talk about that, because a lot of the stuff that happened to kind of veer my path growing up is also a lot of stuff that caused some pretty solid long-term damage. And I don't think it's coincidental. I think it's, you know, a couple different things, but there are things like a lot of people experienced bullying in high school. A lot of people did. You know, there was always some bigger asshole that everybody had to look out for. There just always was. It seemed like. So, like, for example, one of the things that I would have gone through was like all the fat jokes, right? And as an adult, you learn to not give a shit. You don't care anymore. We're way past that. But as a growing child, as a growing teenager, which I'm sure a lot of us, you know, had different growing spectrums and things like that. But I'm sure I'm sure the long-term damages of shit like that, it affects a lot more of us, more than you'd like to think about. That's just one very small example of a lot of things that we're going to refer to. Oh shit! I'm really trying not to refer too much to my story, but like I said, that's kind of the example that I'm going to use today. We're gonna. Okay, so like one of the other things that we all had to deal with as preteens, children, as teenagers, in and out of middle school and high school is when we really got introduced to the whole grading process, the importance of grades, GPAs, blah blah blah. You started learning who you were and how you learn, right? Who you were and how you learn were very prominent in these years, and unfortunately not paid enough attention to, in my opinion. Because one of the things that happened to me, without me ever even understanding truly what was happening, was I wasn't book smart, so to speak. I didn't learn the way that other people learned. I sure as shit gonna be confident enough to say that at this point in my life, I don't think that it was a disability by any means. I just don't think that I just wasn't, I just didn't learn the same way that other people learned, and that this is where we're gonna veer back into the long term trauma or damage that would be caused by trying to find your identity and the people that you're leaning on the hardest to do so. And in those years, you're looking at your counselors, your teachers, your classmates, your blah, 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 your tutors, whatever the case may be, right? These are the people that you're leaning on the hardest to guide you into the shitstorm that we're walking into. And when those people make the choice, to neglect that opportunity, and right, I say all this whilst understanding the magnitude of what I'm asking. Right, I understand that they go through so many students a year, and I understand that at that point we're already just numbers to them. I get it, but on the same token, right, here comes one of my examples. Without understanding, I think it was like junior year or something like that, when I told the counselor that it was my dream to go to ASU because nobody else in my family had gone to a university, so I wanted to be the first. What do you think the correct response should have been? Even if there was grading issues, even if there was different learning styles, what do you think the response should have been? It sure as shit shouldn't have been to laugh in my face, right? Because that's exactly what happened. And I only express that because, one, this is going to be one of the things that I didn't know that was gonna truly guide me down a fucking weird path for another at least 15 years, because now I have no clue who I am because of the person that I thought I wanted to be. I can't because the people that I was leaning on to help me get there just laughed in my face, right? So we talk about that. That was a crucial moment. And then two, now I'm very confused about what to do next, right? These are big steps, and we're skipping a lot of in-betweens, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. But that's okay. I'm just using examples again, and these are I'm picking crucial moments that would identify as those guiding lights, you know, in your biggest times of need. Everybody, and not just me, fucking everybody, because we all did it. We all went through these positions in life where we were looking for our identity at certain times, and we just leaned on certain paths that may or may not have been correct at certain times, you know? Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to get into. Priscilla says long-term damage can also be seen as trust issues, craving stability, and mental health issues. Not everybody shares the same damage, and that's exactly my point. What I'm kind of dancing around is literally everybody's baggage to unpack, so to speak, is wildly different, you know. And I think everybody knows the stuff that kind of anchors them, but I don't think that everybody knows really how to approach it, which is totally fair, because, you know, in order for me to really start unpacking myself, it took a lot. It took a lot, like, of real thinking, of real self-awareness and real training, things like that. My story differs quite a bit after or right around those coming years. And again, I told you I was going to get a little bit more into my story, but when I was in junior year, my mom was diagnosed with a terminal illness that was going to change everything from that point forward. So my trajectory took a fucking wild left when that happened, everything kind of fell apart in my family life, quote unquote. I didn't get the hands to hold. I basically did a little bit more schooling. I kind of tried to pick up the pieces by myself, and I went and lived with my brother for the rest of my adult life. Well, I shouldn't say that. Off and on through my adult life while trying to figure out what to do on my own. So my trajectory and trying to find my identity, this is why mine was so delayed. Part of the reason why. There was a lot of things growing up that didn't help. There was a lot of situations and a lot of avenues where I had to do a lot of surviving on my own. A lot of fine lines that I walked. There's a lot of very, 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 very good examples of why I should have either been in prison or dead by now. And it's all independent stories that we're not going to get into, but like I said, when my story took a turn, this is where an adult trying to find an identity really becomes. It juggles this fine line between survival and trying to grow, because surviving I can do. Trying to grow on my own, not everybody had a hand to hold or a hand to guide, and I'm aware of that. I'm not alone there. But it was definitely one of the things that I didn't realize how detrimental it was going to be until I was like fucking 33 or something like that. And I really started opening up towards the beginning of this, with some of my closer friends and things like that, and that's where I started talking to some of the other people that wanted to be a part of this, and I got to talk to people that had the opposite of my problem of trying to figure out who I was, and somebody introduced the idea of having too many personalities or too many identities, or and to be honest with you, like, that's something I don't even know that I'm even prepared to try and unpack, because I really don't understand it. Like, it was a complete opposite of anything that I've ever been through, which is wild to me. But it just goes to show you how diverse, every situation can be, in so many fucking different ways. So, I talk about the long-term damage of the choices we make. For one, because I had fallen victim to so many different examples of what long-term damage could do that stuck with me up until that point when I finally started unpacking, all my issues. Because those were things starting from before I was even 10 years old. There was moments, instances, people, just so many different examples of things that I didn't know. I had no fucking idea that were going to stick with me, that fucking long in my life. Which was so bizarre to me, because there's things that I can recount that I would have never even thought twice about. But now that those are the only things that stick with me. And it's so crazy. So I encourage you, as an adult, as a young adult, as a growing individual, whatever the case may be, to please, before you increase the strain on somebody else's life, just to really think about the choices that you're making and how it's going to affect everybody else. Because the other part of this is the amount of damage that I caused after I finally got to a point in my life where I was surviving. I was surviving, but I was also making choices that were extremely selfish all the time. And I did that for a very long time, just to make sure that I survived. And that's all I knew. That's all I knew how to do, right? This is where the bridge crosses between surviving and finding my identity, and also too being uneducated in the things that I was doing. Not that that's an excuse, because it sure isn't. But being aware now of the choices that I made and the damage that they did to a lot of people that I actually did care about is really heartbreaking to deal with these days. And selfishly, yeah, I do wish that I could fix and mend some of those things, but it's just not gonna pan out that way. You know, I made a lot of fucked up choices, and I made a lot of fucked up choices to make sure that I was taken care of, without really knowing what I was doing. So I encourage you to think and weigh in on your choices a little bit more, you know, when you make them. And I know that sounds like a lot. It sounds complicated, and it is, but I mean, I would encourage it, because I often think, you know, if I can feel this way about all the choices that I made, and I can also feel this way about a lot of the choices that were made towards me, then I can't be alone, right? There's got to be a handful of other people that I've interacted with throughout my life that I've either been an impact to or left an impact on, right? And I believe that to be true. And it sucks, because I would really like, to invite closure, but again, it's not going to work that way. Oh, what's up, Troy? How you doing, brother? It's good to see you again, man. It's good to finally talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a lot of years. Priscilla says we should have a career day. The guy who did dirty jobs. Yeah, I hope it does. I hope this podcast does open more doors. That's my goal. I want to discover other means for the things that I'm trying to accomplish. Maybe not just a podcast, but I want to. There's a lot of things that I want to do with it and with my new calling, but we'll see. It's all gonna take time. But I think everybody, the beautiful part of the life we live, the beautiful and cruel part, if I'm being honest, is the fact that everybody's timeline is different. Everybody's learning is different. Everybody's knowledge base is different, And again, we get back to the foundation of what it is that I wanted to try and accomplish when I started this thing was, the world is so fucking vast, and the knowledge is there. It's right in front of me. All I have to do is start asking questions, and all I have to do is start, digging deeper, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to keep doing. When I finally figured out a little bit better about my path and who I wanted to be, that I'll reflect on that purity, that children's purity, that children's innocence, the simplicity of a child's purity is so beautiful, and I reflect on it. I reflect on it pretty often, because I see it, like I said, a lot in my son and a lot of my friends' children, and I've fallen in love with the idea, and it irritates me, to be honest with you, that the world strips people of some of those things. And I think what it's kind of come to is that another thing I'm trying to reintroduce when I'm doing all this, and when I'm asking all these questions, trying to learn about everybody's story and let everybody else voice their successes and their manifestations. One of the other things I'm trying to reintroduce is bringing back some of that purity and bringing back some of that input in that conversation without the world's input, without the ugly that got shoved down our throats, at a very young age, because we all have, and some of us have even had to embrace it more to be successful, and it's an understanding, and I get it, but it's ugly nonetheless, I think. Yeah, I think that's a bigger part of my story, trying to trying to manipulate my reality to better my identity. How about that? That's kind of fucked up. That's a complicated situation, you know. I'm trying to manipulate my personal reality to better manifest the reality that I fucking want, because I don't want to surround myself with ugly if I don't have to, and I don't want to settle for anything less. I don't. I'm tired of it. I've worked around it. I've been a part of it. I've spent a lot of years in it, and I'm over it. You know, like I said, there's 1.5 million reasons I could give you that I should either be in prison or in dead by now, and I believe in karma. I'm gonna pay for some of the shit that I've done, and I'm gonna continue to, and I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that, because I want to make do and I want to make better. But I'm gonna take it, 3 steps farther, and I want to continue to make it better for the rest of my life. Not just for me. It actually has nothing to do with me. It's the things that I want. It's the things that I want my energy and my spiritual growth to promote, to be able to help everybody else, so they don't have to see all the ugly that some of us have seen. That's what I want. I want to make sure that finding their identity is not the struggle for as many people as I can, as I can help. Because finding your identity and finding out who you are is so hard to do in a world constantly surrounded by digital influence. And again, I'm not bashing too hard on the technology. It's a different world for a lot of people. It's a different world for everybody growing up in it. So it is what it is. But my mission stands nonetheless, and that's why I wanted to talk to everybody about, again, the ability that we have to change it now is the ability to dictate what choices you're going to make based on how bad the long-term damage is going to be. You can do it. You can definitely fucking think about what you're getting ready to do before you do it, and you can think about the choices that you're going to make before it hurts everybody. I understand that sometimes shit happens, but I also understand the ability to not make those choices when you know damn well what it's going to do. And I think it's something that, so we get to our 20s and our 30s, right? And at that point in our life, we are, let's just say, capable enough of, at the very least, thinking about some of the shit you're getting ready to do and some of the shit you're getting ready to put people through, right? I'm not wrong. So all I'm asking when I ask for you to make better choices there is, again, think about the long-term damage, because there's choices that you've made, there's choices that I've made that aren't going to be fucking relevant for another 10 years. And that anybody who has to deal with a problem or trauma 10 years later because of a choice that somebody else made in your fucking life, you're going to sit here and tell me that's not fucked up? I'm sitting here telling you that's really fucked up. And guess what I did? I spent 15 to 20 years of my life making those choices for other people. So guess what I have to fucking think about every fucking day? I did that. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure that that doesn't happen again. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure that those people and the people that would, God willing, hopefully take into account the things that I'm saying will help me for people in this world, because there's enough ugly in this world. We don't need any more. Some days when I talk about thinking about identity and long-term damage and trauma and the way it changes and forms your identity, sometimes, yeah, it feels ridiculous, because it feels like I'm trying to change the world one person at a time. You know, there's 7 fucking billion people in this world, right? But it feels dumber for me to not try. And it feels dumber for me to watch everybody else not try. The people I love and the people I have never met in a day in my life. But as a teenager and as a child that saw enough shit to make me wonder about all the ugly that I see in today's day and age, and to still be affected by all of it, nonetheless. And which, by the way, I'm willing to admit that I know damn well that if I'm still affected by a lot of the shit that we've all been through and seen and been a part of, if that shit still almost at the age of almost 40 still affects me to this day, or at least affects my thoughts, whether it be about myself or about others, then I know I'm not alone. I know 100% I'm not alone. And this is where I speak so highly of accountability, because you can acknowledge it and you can make the changes. But that's not my choice. That's yours. You have to do it. Yeah, I just can't justify not trying, and it sounds fucked up when I say it this way, but I don't know why I can't justify it. But I don't want to justify it. There's something that my soul craves that's telling me that I have to try. I need to try. Maybe it's because I know what I saw and what I've been a part of. Maybe there's a naive part of me that wants to protect people from all the ugly, which I know is not the right fucking call. Or maybe it is a true calling for a better reason. Maybe there is a giant purpose, but these are the insecure thoughts that go through and that run through, but it doesn't matter. I'm over not listening to who I am inside. And I'm thankful that I'm finally at a point in my life where I do listen to it, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, trying to find who you're supposed to be, I would just encourage you to really double down on your thoughts. It feels ridiculous at times, but really dig deep within yourself. Ask yourself what's right, what's wrong. Really listen to your soul's cravings, because your soul will tell you. I like to believe that your soul will tell you and help you be who you need to be. All you have to do is listen. And I'm a true believer that the positivity and the good things and the good energy and all this stuff really leads to an overall better life. And I don't know why, at the very least, why anybody would want to argue that. So when it comes to finding yourself, those are the things that I encourage. Is it hard? Yeah. Are you gonna have to face shit? Yeah, but spending your days thinking that the rest of them are gonna be bad and negative is just not something I would wish on anybody. But yeah, like I said, we unpacked a lot there, kind of like 3 or 4 different angles, but. Finding your identity. There's a lot that weighs into that. Growing up and becoming who you're supposed to be, and that's see. Bethany says I found myself and I found Christ, and see that's for some people that position is just that's the beauty of it. if that's where you find your home and you find your peace, if you know that's your identity, then it's a beautiful thing. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to dismiss religion. I'm really not. It's just not on my timeline right now. So you'll have to excuse me. I don't mean it disrespectfully. It's just, again, not a part of the things that I'm doing right now. But I do believe that that kind of an experience is truly renowned and is truly an amazing thing. I have been a part of different religious spots in my life, and I will tell you that when you're really immersed in that kind of a life, it's beautiful. It can be beautiful. It can be truly profound. I will agree with you on that, and it's beautiful again. Oh, see, I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah, Beth says I was in jail 2 years ago. I was on my knees, not knowing what was going to happen. Everything has changed for me for the better since then. And I find, oh my God, I love that story. It's truly incredible what something like that can, what it can do to alter your path. And you did it. You know, Beth, you know, we never really got too many opportunities to talk, but you were present for some of my more chaotic years. And first of all, I'd really like to apologize for some of the shittier choices that I made and some of the uneducated choices that I made. But it seems to me that we've both found our way in a much better direction, and it's beautiful. And I'm grateful that I can still call you my friend, and I'm grateful that you stuck around, because I mean, we both made it through. You know, we both made it through the shit in our own different ways, and things look. When I was drunk and making poor choices, hey, you think I was any fucking better? Come on now, but. It's beautiful, and I love it. I love convicting stories that way. Hopefully, maybe when you're in town, maybe we can get you on the podcast. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story and, you know, some of the stuff that I never got to learn about you. But anyway, yeah, and that's exactly what I mean. Is when people find true conviction in their good choices, you know, how do you say no to the end results of an amazing story? You know. It's stupid to try and think otherwise, I think. So, think long term. If not for yourself, then do it for others. You know, fucking try a little bit. This world will give you 1.5 million reasons to be ugly and to not treat your fellow neighbor the correct way, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. I think that we can come together once again. You know, we can come together and not only that, but I think now more than ever the world needs unity, and we need to stop fighting each other. So I'm getting derailed from the original foundation of this, but again. When I started this out, all I wanted to do was know why people were the way they were, and I think the original reason of what I was asking has been kind of long forgotten. But now there's much more important things that I want to know, and there's much more important things that I want to share, and that's the beauty of it all. Truly grateful that I finally found my identity and finally found who I need to be, and I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to do it. So, if there's one thing I could ask, I was going to do this in the beginning and I completely fucking forgot. For anybody listening, to please go to the Me vs. Me business page and like that. I need more followers on that business page so I can use that to do live things, and I can do better lives with the business page. But I need to reignite that page, and I need to use that primarily instead of using my personal. It's going to be much better. It's going to be a much better platform, and I'm going to be able to do a lot better things with that one as well. So please, 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 Me Versus Me. It's a different logo. It doesn't say my name. It says the podcast in the description. Well, as the name. So please go give that a like, and please give it a share. I would really greatly appreciate it, so we can move this thing forward and really create something a little bit bigger. We're gonna push a little bit harder this year to make this business and this podcast, a much bigger thing, and see how far we can take this. And I can make bigger events, bigger lives, blah blah blah. It'll be fun. So, if you don't mind, give that a like, give it a follow, and give it a share, please. And if I don't have anybody on this week, then I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you all for the input, and I love you. Have a good night.